Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's a chess show on Pod TV. My name is Sasha Starr, and our distinguished guest today is Professor Ken Regan. Welcome to the show, Ken.
Yep. Thank you very much for having me on again. Welcome to my home. And we're both have our eyes glued on the Olympiad.
It's impossible to get away from it, even for 1 second. I have difficulties, even if I want to go to the washroom. I'm thinking maybe another half an hour. I'll wait.
Yeah.
It's
And the commentators are doing a good job of pointing out some potential impacts in games,
yeah,
variations. So
yeah. This is show in itself. The commentators are great, and I'm listening to several different commentators. Uh,
Spidler for FIDE
Absolutely,
and
Judith
Judith
Polgar,
Polgar for
she's
Chess.com.
amazing. Yeah, that's all amazing show. But Ken, what would you like to show us? Uh,
Well, a game that's in the making now. I guess you don't mind the time
yes,
shift. So let me present a tab. Um,
okay.
so this is whoops. Let's see. Oh, here it is. So this is the game. The match right now is between India, who have been perfect 8-0, against defending champions Uzbekistan. And Arjun Erigaisi has been really lighting up the show. I mentioned him last week. This game, if he wins it, has the potential to be regarded as a modern Morphy, because you'll
Mhm.
see Morphy's principles of development coming to the fore in White's play. But it's not at all clear that White has a winning advantage. It's just wonderful dynamic play, in a classic Rui Lopez, but the Berlin variation, which wasn't so played in Morphy's day. Um, and we get this line. We get an unusual line, a little bit off the beaten track. White didn't capture on e5 and regain his piece with a4. We didn't play the positions where the queens come off. We didn't play the position that leads to the Berlin draw. Instead, Black wants to play for dynamic counterplay as well. But obviously, you have to know what's happening in this position, because White can pin the pawn and then occupy the center. And now Black's pawn is definitely in danger, but Black has a way to counterattack against White's d pawn. Um, so there we go. Now White is temporarily a pawn ahead, but in fact, it's not going to be easy. Actually, I'm sorry, I miscounted here. White is not a pawn ahead. Here it was a pawn ahead. Um, Pawns are equal. No, sorry, knights got traded. No, okay. So now the point here is that Black is going to be able to neutralize White's center, but at cost in development. Okay, so Black has to be very careful here that White can't simply pin and win. Well, happily, Black's knight covers g4, but we're going to do something, d4, but we're going to do something about that now as White. Okay, now latent theme in this position is that if White gets another piece on f7, there's a possibility of a piece taking it and then rook e8 being checkmate. Of course, that's not at all on the cards in this position, but it's a latent theme that looked more possible when I was viewing this game a little later. Black decided not to trade the queens because trading the queens would have left White with complete domination of the center for at least the next few moves. If you look at the engine evaluation, you do see that White has a substantial initiative. So this is maybe not what Black wants out of the opening, but when you have a substantial initiative, you have to do something with it. Okay, so now White at least has another piece on f7, and White is able to double up on the e file. The computer likes this move, and more to the point, Black can't put a piece very comfortably on e8. Let's see what happens if Black plays e8. Well, the computer is going to tell us in a moment, but you should be able to see it. It's capturing on f7 and mate in 6. Okay, so that latent theme very much in already in play in this position. Oh, sorry, oops, not there.
Mhm.
Down here, checkmate. Bishop pinning the rook to the king. So so therefore already, in fact, Black has only one move to keep White's advantage under pawn, and Shamsin Voikodov found it. But now white is able to play a move that maybe Morphy would have hesitated over a little. It's a committal move, making weaknesses on white's king side, but it knocks black's single developed piece back into the position. And now white is able to build up latent pressure on the knight. The knight, by the way, does guard f7, so temporarily reprieve from those kind of tricks. And the computer likes black retreating the bishop to c8, but once again, it's a retreating move. Now white has real pressure against that knight, and if the knight moves, what do you think the knight's moving? For instance, here, lays open. Well, it lays open, shake on d8, and then the f7 square is undefended. So as was exploited in many games by Morphy, it's a latent trouble for black. So black, very uncomfortably, I have to say, because maneuvering in a tight space, reinforces both the knight and the rook. Now the knight can retreat and not have to worry about a rook being deflected, and the rook on d7 takes over the defense of f7 somewhat. Okay. But actually, the computer does not like black's retreating move. Computer thinks that black should have lashed out with f5 or played king h8 so that a chapter on f7 would not be check. So knight e8 is the third best move for black here. And now white has a position where every one of white's pieces is more active than the corresponding black piece, and the rook on f8 cannot move at all. So this now is the current position in the game. White's knight on e4 dominates black's knight, so even black's knight cannot move in this position. What can black do, but also what can white do? Is it enough to win? And this is a real crux of the position, and it must be said that black is also getting short on time, because the only move the computer sees to keep white's advantage under a pawn is a really committal move that actually legitimates white's g-pawn advance, as well as creating a weakness. It also creates a latent problem with the queen going to g6, where there's a pin on the f7 pawn. So I would be very, very, I'm not a computer. I don't have an omni view of the next 6 moves in the game. So I would be very, very hesitant to play a move like h6 in this position. On the other hand, white might be on the point of forcing it anyway with rook h3. So maybe black needs to play it to get organized. So the other thing the next best thing black can do is try to put a little pressure on white's position, but then rook h3 after the h6 anyway. And now, I can play h4, rook h4 defending, and then it's questions what will happen next. So wonderfully interesting position. Let me just make sure that I have the current position on the board. Also, the players are getting short of time. There is a lump sum of 30 minutes at turn 40, but we are 17 moves away from that, and white in particular has under 17 minutes left. Well, if you count the increments, actually, then that does amount to about 25 minutes left. So.
Wow, the position of black is almost in Zugzwang. It's hardly any move exists that doesn't make position any worse than it is already. So you have to choose between h6 and I do not know what else black can do in this position.
Yeah.
Really, it's hard to find any single move.
Yeah, it's definitely an edge for white where black is under pressure. Let's take a look at the overall state of the match.
Okay.
So I can now share a different tab.
I remember there was an early draw on board 4.
Right.
But the other 3 are still fighting.
So let's see. Do I get the women or the men? That's the one thing. I'm not sure which tab. Okay, so this is the men's, and you can see Hungary, USA.
Oh, okay. Very interesting.
Right. And this match, actually, it's gotten closer. Carolina had a little more of an edge against Richard Rapport, according to the computer, but white is definitely pressing. White has this weird pawn formation in the center, 5 pawns occupying 3 files. The result of that is that white has sole command of the F file, and white has sole command of the B file. What's interesting is wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. White has all 8 pawns, and black has all 8 pawns. Black's double pawns do give some counter pressure on the d file, and black can possibly double up, although black's rook on e6 has to guard the e pawn. So white is attacking a lot of points. f6, e5 is loose, b6 is loose, d3 is loose, but that's black's only attack. However, black is also defending all those points. White is double attacking h5, but on the other hand, white has to be concerned about black's queen opening up h4. Now, if I click this, unfortunately, it's probably going to go. No, actually, it will go on the same tabs. You can see this.
I mean, it's in position,
And
but
I've
she has a
looped
weakness,
Judith
an isolated
Polgar
pawn
on
on
the
d4, so
analysis,
that
so I'll mute her. So it's hard to tell, but knight g5. Let's see. Why can't white see a pawn, take a pawn? Why can't white take a pawn? Ah, we're letting this fall. Wow. Okay, and then black's queen really is coming in on h4, like I said. So queen h4, and is g3 the problem? Yeah, g3. Yeah, there we go. It's going to be mate. so real pressing position here. If I go back, I want to show one moment from one of the other games.
Always interesting. Personal needs are subsumed.
Again, mute the broadcast. So Leonid Dominguez had an opportunity against Sanan Shugarov. This is a very interesting position. You can now see it. See this position. So the pawns are actually the pawns just are about to be traded, but the pawns are even. But white is the useless double b pawn. Black has this extra e pawn. But white has 2 very commanding bishops and a much more active king. I frankly would expect white to win this position. Maybe the difficulty is that it's hard to organize an attack on the b4 pawn, but certainly white's more active king gives white the better chances. On the other hand, it's also possible that black may just chop all the wood and escape into ending the piece down with white having no more pawns. The opportunity, however, though, came a number of moves ago. So white, to back up here. Okay, so the white had an opportunity to take a pawn in this position, and have as you see, the engine likes it. And the point is that the reason why this pawn seemed taboo is that black could discover attack with d5, and then d4 would drive back a lot of white's army. But white has an amazing resource pointed out by Daniel Naroditsky, the commentators, to play bishop b6, and this cuts all of black's lines. So if black takes the bishop with the knight, black's rook falls off. If black takes the bishop with the queen, then white comes into e7, taking black's bishop, and white has a very strong attack against black's disorganized army. And finally, if black takes the queen, now white's bishop is completely scot-free on d8. And white is also attacking the knight on f7. And at the very least, white is going to capture on d5 and come crashing through. So this was a missed opportunity for Dominguez Perez and some really beautiful tactics.
Very nice.
So let me stop sharing this. Okay. No, I mean, muted Polgar again. Hate to mute her. She's such a wonderful commentator, but to use a line for the campaign, I'm speaking now. Actually, I probably should let her speak. So I do have some games saved from previous rounds. And on Wednesday, after the rest day, in round 7, there was a very important moment. So China, I think, was a half point behind India at the time. India perfect 6-0, and they faced the. Given that the U.S. team had fallen off with a loss to Ukraine, okay, Vasily Ivanchuk being hero, and then a draw against Romania. These were 2 of the top heavyweights left facing each other, but. Let me just make sure I have the right Oh, that's right. I have to share my whole screen. That's right, because Arena is not shareable in a tab. So I now present my whole screen. And okay, so a little bit of a mirror effect at the moment, but the Gukesh, of course, has been holding down first board for India. But the story of this game, do you see Gukesh Wei Yi now?
Ding Liren avoided to play in
Right.
Gukesh, right?
Ding Liren lost in the previous round to Vietnam, to Vietnamese Le Quang Liem. So they sat Ding Liren after the rest day, okay, for this vital match. So it's Wei Yi, of course, is a great player, but he is not Ding Liren. He's actually higher rated than Ding Liren, 2762. Ding Liren has sunk to within 2 rating points of Hans Niemann now. But anyway, he is playing today. Okay, we might take a look at his game as well. Well, Gukesh won a great game of Sitzfleisch. Okay, just by applying little minimal pressure. So he plays, conservatively against the Sicilian. And when Black plays e5, he then switches over to pressuring the d5 point. But Black has gained a tempo. So this is perfectly fine for Black. In fact, if I did use a computer in that evaluation, after 15 moves, Black was not worse. Black was showing a slight advantage in the position. So White has trying to leave Black with a bad bishop. White's dark squared bishop was good too, but getting rid of the knight enhances White's control over the d5 square. So both players are playing fine. Black is already all developed. White completes development. Black now gains space on the queen side. And now Black prepares also gaining space on the king side. And in some positions, this would be overextending or creating weaknesses, but the computer actually legitimates this. Okay, so Black, this is overprotection, prophylaxis, and also possibly reacting with b4 against certain moves, or even c4, and White's b pawn would be vulnerable at the end. Okay, White also playing prophylaxis. Black plays prophylaxis here, and the idea really is also to make a safe haven for the bishop, because White did not want to give up the d5 knight. Now Black takes that opportunity away, but also Black lays the possibility for playing a counterattack against White's center on the king side. So I'd worry about this being an overstretch, but let's actually see what Komodo 11 thinks of this move. Komodo 11 thinks that White has a very slight edge, taking on e5. Actually, it's diminishing as we look further. The version of Stockfish on chess.com actually showed a slight advantage to Black when I looked at it. But you do have to be careful about White's probing for weaknesses, and that's exactly what White starts by probing the weakness on e6, and now trading and thinking, well, am I going to get something now on the vacated artery into h5? And moreover, I can also play to open up the king side. Indeed, my pieces are facing the king side. Black's bishops are really sort of facing away. So here we go, f4. And Black, however, ready with a counterattack where the attack on the b pawn plays. This is chess of a very high order. The preparatory move b4 comes into play here. Okay, White captures, and now, so obviously we would need to play, but there's cutting lines here is again a theme. If you capture with the knight, then the bishop c4 is unguarded. If you capture with the rook, then g5 is unguarded. And if you capture with the queen, then b2 is unguarded. Okay, so White cannot capture Black, and this will give Black an initiative for stepping forward in the center. Okay, so Black could play knight e5. Do have to watch that Black's a6 is under attack, and knight e5 might not be effective. So instead, black does something that's really positionally minded. We first take white's bishop off the powerful c4 square. Can't take the pawn on a6 now. Queen, because bishop takes d5 and queen b6 check would be a fork. So white therefore retreats the bishop, and now black comes into the square that white actually weakened. And now black is functionally down a pawn. I mean, especially after this f4 move, the f4 pawn was a goner. But black has two bishops against two knights, an open position, and some nice squares. So this is full compensation. Let's see. Well, the engine thinks that white is doing well here, though maybe not so much with against white. So white must have trumps in this position as well. The airiness of black's king. Gosh, though optically, I prefer playing black here.
Well, white has a better pawn structure, and if they can survive into end game, maybe their position is not worse, but it remains to be seen if they can survive.
Yeah. The computer says white should just dodge with f2, work f2, and then ask black what's the next move. Anyway, white captured on f4, and this enables black to really triple up on the pawn. Rook d1. So black now takes the pawn away, but this actually, okay, so now we've got a pure endgame, two bishops against two rooks. White, however, gains a pawn, and other pawns are going to fall. And now comes a very interesting tactical juncture in this position. Let's see if my engine thinks it was four. So the engine thinks black can just play rook a2. Well, he now likes to move a5 that black played. All right, a5. Let me play white's next move, rook d8. Of course, a good move. And the engine actually likes black to go into this line. So what happened is black captured on c3. Now white is going to win one of black's bishops. Okay. However, black can avoid the loss of a whole piece by giving up the gaining a rook against white's two knights instead. Okay, so this is now counterpin. However, white captures black's bishop, and now we have this really interesting endgame. And two knights add up to 6 and change. Rook adds up to 5 in the old way. So white is nominally up a pawn, but black's rook is active. But white's king is better, and black's pawn structure is a little weaker. And maybe the most important thing, two knights can gang up on a pawn. Rook can only defend it once. But you have to organize those knights. So the engine does think that white is that knight b5 only move to keep a slight advantage. Rook c2 check, king f1. But probably we'd say that black should be able to hold this position. Let me turn off the engine again for a while. Let's just see how white keeps, creating opportunities in this position. They are ganging up against the pawn. Black can counterattack. Okay. So black is just trying to keep white occupied. So we do shuffle the wood around. Now this is important. White has committed the pawn to a4, but that fixes black's pawn on a5. So it's another point that white can possibly gang up on. Okay, black activates the king. White creates a stronghold on f4 that enables white to bring up his own king as well. Okay. I'll peek with the computer again. No, white is still a little more than half a pawn advantage just by playing knight f4, but actually way he brings this knight, wheels this knight around to f3. Okay, and now you can see that this knight is now getting in range of black's a pawn. So d4 is a good square for it. We repeat moves. Now black decides to reinforce the knight on d4. And now this is the position. So black's king looks active, but this actually creates a juncture where white can expand. Okay, so so therefore black found a need to do something in this position. Indeed, f4 is the only move that keeps white's. No, not true anymore. It was the only move. Now maybe Komodo thinks that black could just calmly play c5. It needs a lot of calculation, and by this time players don't have a lot of time. So Wei Yi decided to force the issue a bit more. Okay, so now trade of pawns. The only problem is the presence of a passed pawn helps the attacking side. Helps the side with a preponderance of force. So black is now banking everything on the counterplay with the H pawn. Now I'm going to keep the engine on because we are in what is called the zone of one mistake. The game is still even, but black has to time the defense exactly right. Okay. And here is where black made a crucial misstep. And this really should be one of those training videos. What is black's way? It's either this position or one after the next move. Because king c7 is a counterintuitive move to play. Okay, looks like you're going away from the pawn that you're trying to stop with your king, but it also is away from checks. So black played king d8. Now this may not be the losing move. The losing move, I think, comes next. Right, yeah, let's see, is it here? F7. Let's see, yes, it was here. So what black had to do was black had to time this by playing rook d1 check first. Okay, it's very, very, very counterintuitive. Black had to find this move, not rook f1. Okay, rook f1 also is a losing move. The second most natural move on the board also loses. There's a very tricky reason, which I have not taken time to fully suss, why you have to give a check to white's king. Oops, so h3, here we go. Why you have to give a check to white's king first. Okay. And then if, let's see, king e2 is a natural place to put the rook. But now you can play rook d5, and I guess you get to disturb white's knights now that white's king is far back. So this is already very, very difficult play. Anyway, h3 was a mistake. And now after f7, rook f1 comes too late. Knight g5 attacking your pawn. Now it looks like black is going to queen, but white has an amazing move, a cutoff move, and white is also going to queen if black queens, and white will then be able to give a checkmate in short order. Okay, so I probably should show that line. So if black queens, then white has mate in 10 with this king c7, queen e7 check. Okay, and king b6, and it's hunting in the corner. And part of black's problem is that you can't keep the king out on c6 because then the other knight comes in. Okay, so a king a6, queen e6, king a7, queen b6, king a8. Okay, and now queen d8 checks. It's very artful. Queen d8 check, king b7, and now you can take this. Okay, so how are we? So eventually we're going to mate on g5. Okay, because we go here, we go here, 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 and queen g5 mate, and my thing is crashed. Sometimes happens with Arena, but black's game also crashed because black went with the king, but black's pawn was gone and black's position is gone. Black gave up here because white is about to queen. So very, a statement game, Wei Yi called it.
Very interesting how one move can make so much difference. You have to be so precise in this, especially endings. And looks like it's very simple. Everything was known, but it's not. Obviously, it is not.
That's right.
Ken, thank you very much for showing us these wonderful games. Now let's go back to televisions and look.
Let's go back to the Olympiad. Okay, I agree with you.
And we'll see you next Friday, same place,
Go
same
back.
time. We'll
Yeah.
discuss the Olympiad and the.
Okay, so in fact, actually, let me just say what has happened in Eric Icey's
Yes,
game,
please.
because it's thematic with what I
Yes.
was saying. So I'll just present it one more time. Okay, I'll share screen to this tab, and here's what happened. So we left off when White had played knight e4. Black did play h6, and now White went into g6 a little prematurely. Okay, and now the computer thinks that Black's c5 organizes a defense by shedding some material.
No, I don't see the board.
Okay, I'm sorry. So
I remember position though.
okay, let me try sharing once more then. Stop
Okay.
sharing, and now present, share screen, share Chrome tab, and share, and now tell me when the board happens.
Not yet.
Okay.
It's not coming yet.
Not coming yet. Okay. Oh, maybe I'll try sharing my entire screen. Maybe the widget is out. Okay, I'll try one more time just sharing the entire screen this time. Entire screen. Here goes. Share. And now over to this board. No luck.
No.
Okay, well, Black played, referencing what was early in the program, Black did play h6, and White played queen g6 a little prematurely when it wasn't attacking anything yet. And that enabled Black to counterattack with c5. And now we have a trade of pieces that has greatly lessened the pressure on Black. And we're going to go into an endgame where White still has a nominal advantage, but the worst has passed. So the reality is that chess players can play defense too.
Wonderful.
So we might not see a Morphy. We're not seeing a Morphy brilliancy on that board. But other exciting games going on. We could spend a whole hour.
And also a lot of exciting games on women's boards too.
Right. Okay, I have that open, in fact. And so in the U.S. match, there are 2 draws. Irina Krush is under great pressure from Vantika Agrawal, but Gulrukh Begim Todurakovna is retaliating against Vaishali Ramesh Bambu. She rebuffed Vaishali's attack. And right now, Vaishali is down 2 pawns. He has queen and rook lined up on the H-file, but it's not going to be checkmate. So Black is staring at being 2 pawns down. So if the U.S. player wins on board 1, and if Irina Krush can hold on board 2, that will be a narrow victory against India, but still a lot to play for. Meanwhile, I have to give a shout out to Canada. Okay, I meant to say this at the beginning, that the Canadian women's team actually was on a higher board than the U.S. team in active competition and outrated fairly strongly on these boards. But Miley Jade Wale, I guess I'm pronouncing her name correctly, is an exchange up against Joka Gal. I mean, she's not outrated by very much, but that's very good going. However, Huang Tan Trang has a super advantage against Yunshun Lee, and Juliana Terevin Viknosh is looking drawish, so it may come down therefore to the 4th board where the Hungarian woman is basically has an endgame lock against Svetlana Demchenko. And 3 pawns up, although the pawns are doubled and isolated. So, and actually, and bad things are about to happen, giving checkmate. In fact, this looks just resignable. Actually, too bad.
Okay, we'll watch
Okay.
all these developments, and again, have a great weekend.
Thank you very much. Yep.
Looking forward to see you next week, same place, same time.
Okay.
Bye-bye, everybody. Have a great
Yep.
week.
Bye-bye.